to the very first episode of the Decyfr Handoff, a brand new show bringing fans of the NFL closer to this great sport across our British fans, our fans in Germany, and the fans who are growing throughout Europe. We're going to talk every month. We'll get together once a month to talk about all the big international storylines, all the talking points from around the NFL. I'm your host, Neil Reynolds. Joining me this week is a man who's now making his name on CNN, but he started out as a linebacker with the Buffalo Bills and the Atlanta Falcons, Coy Wire. And Coy, it's going to be fun to discuss the international growth of the NFL.
Neil, I'm fortunate to be here with you. I'm a bit jealous because I know you've been to some of these international games. I have not yet been able to experience one, but I love that you are calling attention to them because I know I'm excited about the growth of the game.
Yeah, over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll recap the NFL International Series, which saw games played in London, Munich, and Mexico City. We'll chat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers' trip to London, the Jaguars' return to Wembley, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers taking Munich by storm, all tying into how America's game is truly becoming the global game. And before we round off today's show, we'll also get Coy's picks for the Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach, and that all-important Super Bowl champion. But first, Coy, why don't we start with your NFL fandom? And I assume you were a fan of the game before you could even dream about playing the sport.
This is true. Before I even had a choice, when I was a baby, first brought home from the hospital, my parents put me in a Pittsburgh Steelers onesie. I grew up in Pennsylvania, where football is like religion, a football hotbed. And really, by the time I was 6 or 7 years old, Neil, I knew that I wanted to play in the NFL. I was fortunate to have the Washington team. They would have training camp in my hometown, where I played Pee-wee football. It's called, 6, 7 years old. And their Washington players are coming. Doug Williams, Darrell Green, all these guys coming to have their training camp in the preseason right there. And our uniforms matched their uniforms. I mean, so I literally wanted to be just like them. And that's kind of where my journey began.
What was it like being a linebacker in the NFL in the heat of battle every Sunday?
It was like the most exhilarating car ride you've ever been in. But at the end of every play, your car crashes into a brick wall. I was never the biggest, fastest, or strongest. Took a lot of big hits over the years, gave a lot of big hits. I have a titanium plate and 4 screws in my neck to prove it. But, it's part of the game that you love. It's so unique. It's not like anything else. And it really was a privilege and a pleasure to play in the NFL. Dream come true, as I told you. But so few people here in the United States ever actually make it. Even the highest levels at the collegiate level, so few get that opportunity. So to be one of the select few that got to be able to see my dream out and play for 9 years in the NFL, it was a blessing.
How far into your NFL career did you start to think about what might be next and transitioning into the role? I mean, maybe you didn't ever dream you'd be at CNN doing what you're doing now, but did you start to put one eye on the media, start to map out your life after football?
At first, no. I was living my dream, and I didn't want it to ever end. But then at the end of my 6th season, when I had my season-ending injury, my arm went numb. I got hit by a 330-pound lineman right on the top of my head, and that's when I had my neck injury. And I had the neck surgery, had the plate, 4 screws put in my neck. I thought my career was over, and it wasn't until then that I really started to think about this dream is going to end. Now, I was fortunate enough to get one more opportunity to go back and play. I went from the Buffalo Bills to the Atlanta Falcons, and I was able to play 3 more years after that. And I did start to lightly think about what else I could do, but it was still all in. And you have to be to play at that level, right? You can't be thinking about too much outside of your passion. So, Neil, when my career did end after 9 seasons, I still struggled. There was a year that was a lot of mental, emotional torment. I was waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like I didn't know what was happening. Am I having like a heart attack? My heart's racing. My arms are numb again. Am I having, like, what's going on? And my wife said, she had a psychology degree, and she told me, you're having panic attacks. You're having anxiety. And she was right. So it wasn't until I found a new passion that I started to feel okay again. And the media really just kind of happened to me. I started as an analyst, got some opportunities to talk football, calling football games at the collegiate level. And then I got to go and be in the studio doing pre-game shows, halftime shows, post-game shows. And that kind of led me for a few years to where I am now at CNN, where I'm talking all sports and not so much X's and O's anymore. Just, we're not a sports network, obviously. So I get to talk about the stuff I love, which is the inspiration, the motivation that we can see through athletes and teams that can inspire us in whatever walk of life we may be.
So, and one of those storylines that's developing year on year is the international growth of the NFL. We'll get to that in a second, but one more question on your playing career. So maybe as a rookie, you're thrown into the starting lineup and you're there and you're in the heat of the moment and you're playing. Which was scarier, that or your first time you had to do live TV and the red light went on?
Well, the first time I went to an NFL game, Neil, believe it or not, that I played, the first time I went to an NFL game was the one I played in. I had never even seen an NFL game in person. And so I was crying, bawling tears on the sidelines during the national anthem. Thankfully, that didn't happen my first time on TV. But I tell you, the first time that I got on air here at CNN, when I had to read a teleprompter, and my mind has been, I think I was more nervous for that, to be honest, than I was.
Out of that comfort zone.
Yeah. And you don't have 10 of your teammates out there on the field with you or in the studio. You're all by yourself, and those lights come on. Woo, they're not mess up.
Let's talk about the international growth then of the NFL. Let's start with the NFL London games. And this year we completed the set with the Green Bay Packers playing here. What's your view of the games from the stateside? What's the general view from the media as they look towards London?
I love the idea of the globalization of the game. Even as a player, I had started to hear about, how they were really going to push for that. And I've seen it grow to now where there's multiple games every year and still growing. I liken it to how soccer is really starting to grow here in the U.S. at a rapid pace. And we're seeing it even more now with the World Cup. But, the globalization of the beautiful game, coming over here to the States. And I love that the NFL is doing the same, bringing that beautiful game overseas and into Mexico as well. It's a fascinating sport. There are so many moving parts and such strategy that goes behind it. But then there's that added dynamic of the violence and the huge collisions. And it's just so unique and unlike anything else. But, through the game, I love how it can inspire and uplift. And it's the ultimate team game, right? And so you really see, at least here in the States, my favorite part is how the sport brings people together. They say that the most unified people can be from all walks of life is at NFL kickoff on a Sunday. You'll see people from all walks of life, socioeconomic status, race, religion, doesn't matter. You're high-fiving, you're hugging, you're coming together. And I know soccer is very much the same, but I'm loving that we have another opportunity to share that aspect of the game overseas and in Mexico.
Yeah, I think soccer's that way in the World Cup time. I mean, it can be very tribal at times, and there's contrasting fans, especially in the UK. But I think the good thing about the London games, the great thing is that your families are there, and as you kind of alluded to, that you'll see all 32 jerseys. And this year we completed all 32 teams, and that was a special moment to have Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers there. Because you're witnessing a historic great. And who would have thought when we started playing a regular season game in London in 2007, 15 years later, we'll have had the entire league come through and play a regular season game in London. It really has been. I feel like as a journalist covering it, it's quite a historic time.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you even hear how incredible it is for the players. Tom Brady talked about the 3 million people reported who were hoping to get in to see that game, but only 60-some thousand were able to get in. And that meant a lot to him. That's going to be a lifelong memory that the greatest of all time, Tom Brady even, is going to leave a huge impression on him, as much so as it leaves an impression on the fans and journalists as well who get to cover those games.
Yeah, I was at that game in Munich, and it was just, again, I think when you're covering something as a journalist, you feel like if you're witnessing a part of history, I think you feel like it adds to the story. Of course, it gives you a little bit more juice when you're covering it and presenting. And obviously, Munich had Tom Brady, which was all the selling point you needed. But with it being the first game, Coy, I'd covered NFL Europe games back in the day in Germany, and the fan base was incredible. And you talk about coming together. At the 2-minute warning, the entire stadium, 70,000 people singing "Take Me Home, Country Roads," right? And that was it was just beautiful. It was just like, this is sport. This is like they say football is family. I mean, I actually bought it that day. I bought that tagline.
What was your reaction? Did you get goosebumps or what?
We were live, so we on Sky Sports NFL, where I present. We fill all of the commercial breaks, or 2/3 of the commercial breaks. I had to stop. We were outside on a gantry. I had to stop and just say, "Look at this," because they had all the torches were on the phones, and I didn't want to just carry on talking over it. So we just sort of turned and acknowledged it, and I just had to take it in for a moment. You know, you had to become a fan like everyone else and just experience it and watch it. Yeah, it was really special, and the fact that Tom Brady, who's won a lot of Super Bowls, 7 Super Bowls, and he's played in 10 of them, said that was one of the greatest nights of his life. I think that speaks volumes.
I envy you.
I'm going to get you over.
Fortunate to see that. Oh yeah,
we've got to get you over. How would you have? How do you think, as a player, how you would prepare for an international game? What would have been the most? What would have been the most important things for you, and what do you think are the most important things for the teams that come over?
You know, I don't know that I would have played very well that week. I would have been wanting to bring my family. I would have been wanting to get out and soak in the culture and meet the people. And oh man, it would be really tough to be focused. But that's the key, right? That these players are up against. They have the added physical challenges of the travel. You know, the bodies are beaten, and you're not getting your normal rest. You're not sleeping in your own bed. All those things add up and take a physical toll on you. I mean, one thing, Neil, you know, our trainers would tell us when we go on a cross country flight, on a 3-4 hour flight here in the States, they would tell us to drink 1 20-ounce bottle of Gatorade per hour in the air. And so you think about how many Gatorades you'd have to just chug on your way on a international flight like that. So what they're up against physically, that would be a huge challenge. But then the mental aspect as well, it would be really cool to experience that. Never did. Maybe I will as a journalist, and I'll make sure I'm well hydrated when I come to see you, because maybe we'll be drinking some beers and be dehydrating ourselves once I finally get there.
There we go. I think this international series ticked all of the boxes, because we had Justin Jefferson doing the gritty for the Minnesota Vikings, and everything everyone wanted to see. You know, they got. You know, they didn't get the Green Bay Packers win, but they saw Aaron Rodgers throwing touchdown passes in London. The Giants are such an iconic team as well. The Jaguars returned to Wembley Stadium, and that was fantastic. And you know, Tom Brady, and then the 49ers offensive players put on an absolute show in Mexico City. Interesting, Coy, as well, how these teams now can market themselves in Mexico, in the UK, in Germany. And all these teams are starting to cherry pick these markets, and they're doing a lot of activity now, which again, it just makes it more real, doesn't it? Rather than just coming in, play a game and disappear again.
Yeah, I think, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel. I mean, you go there and you see all your jerseys, and you have fans. There are passionate fans in Europe and in Mexico, as we know. And so it's just really special to be able to connect in that way as a player, to go there. But I think this is all going to add up to many more games, maybe per year being played there, maybe a team being based in an international city. I think that's all to come, and this is all just the very beginning, and it's already exciting. So I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. About the, you know, the commissioner said to me in the around the Giants and Packers game that they're actually going to explore a division in Europe. And I wonder, as like you say, you work for a news channel, so you're looking for those news angles all the time. I mean, this is only going one way, right? I mean, if it doesn't, it may not reach the heights of a division or a franchise, but games aren't going to get reduced here, are they? I mean, this is still growing and growing.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. And having a whole division in a city overseas or in Mexico, that makes sense because now you really cut down the travel. Mm-hmm. It's smart strategically. But I can't wait to see what it is. I'm personally curious, Neil, for you, if there were just one team that's going to be based in your city, who do you want and why?
Well, I think it would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it's going to be a relocation, and the Jags are quite invested already. I could watch Trevor Lawrence 8 times a year. I'm quite into that.
Really exciting. I'm really jealous of his hair. He's got the best hair in the NFL.
Yeah, me too. So I would definitely appreciate a little bit of that. But
and now Doug Peterson's got them moving in the right direction. I like that.
I think they would. I think if there was ever a team here, they get out into the schools and they get the flag football programs going, all of that stuff which the Jags do with their Jag tag. I think they'd soon grow a new fan base, and then there'd be all the people that are here as well. People would start to transition over. Not everyone, I'm sure. They've got their fans of certain teams, and I hear that all the time. But as new fans came in, they would be, well, the Jags play here or they play there. I'm going to go and watch them.
Yeah, and I like to think about too all of the talent that there is athletically worldwide, and a lot of the people who may be the best football players we've ever seen, they just have never played because they didn't grow up with, like I did, a team having training camp in their hometown. But if you have a team based over there now you have these youngsters from all over Europe and beyond aspiring to be an NFL player, and now you're pulling from a worldwide pool of talent. Ooh, that competition in the NFL. I'm glad that my playing days are over.
Yeah, those competition for places would be pretty intense. All right, Coy, we're going to put you on the spot now. We're going to ask for your picks. I'm going to leave Super Bowl champion till the end. Let's tease in reverse order here. So, coach of the year, who's impressed you the most so far?
I'm impressed with the coach because I'm impressed by his team. Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles have just exceeded any expectations for them this season. They only had 9 wins last season. They already have 10 this season. They're 10-1, best record in the NFL. And Nick Sirianni's only in his second season as a head coach. He has a young quarterback, Jalen Hurts, and the things he's doing with them and the way he has them playing and united, it's so impressive for a young coach with a young quarterback who's the leader of the team to be handling themselves the way they are. They look pretty darn impressive. And so Nick Sirianni for me is coach of the year.
All right. Let's move on to your offensive player. How should we do this? Let's do league MVP because the MVP tends to go to a quarterback, and then we'll do offensive and defensive player. So let's do your MVP. I'm going to guess it's a quarterback. Maybe it's not. You tell me.
What is your guess? I'm curious.
I would go, I think a safe bet right now would be Patrick Mahomes.
You got it. I'm really tempted to say Josh Allen because I love my Buffalo Bills. I played 6 seasons there, and he's incredible. He has that elbow injury, and he has not been quite the same. And you just have to play week in and week out, lights out. And that has been Patrick Mahomes, 3,500 plus yards passing, leading the league. He's leading the league with 29 touchdowns, I believe now as well, but leading in both categories. So, and the fact that he's doing it this year, Neil, as you know, he doesn't have the cheetah, Tyreek Hill, his receiver, his deep threat, but he's still pulling off these incredible performances. His combination with their head coach, Andy Reid, who's one of the just most ingenious play callers in NFL history, those two together, scary.
Yeah, they are. They certainly dial up lots of challenges, especially down near the goal line. I mean, it's almost, I know you would never give up on defense. I know you'd never give up on defense, but you almost might as well because they dial up motions and end arounds.
Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. We're just
don't make me look silly.
Offensive player of the year then. So who's, I guess, the next best the offensive player that you really have been impressed with?
Well, you threw me for a bit of a curveball because, yeah, that is usually the same person, right?
Right.
But I'll give you someone different. And I'll give you a different position because I am kind of tired of quarterbacks always winning it.
Good.
I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs, the running back for the Vegas Raiders. He is playing in a contract year, meaning he was hoping to get a new deal, but they said no. So he knows that after this season, he's a free agent. So he is just playing for that money.
We call it motivation.
It's quite the motivation. And, you know, I've met him in person, Neil. I'm not the biggest guy. I'm only about 6 foot tall. He's much shorter than I am, but he's got a big heart. He is tough as nails. He's playing through injuries. I like him. He's an awesome player.
He stiff-armed Al Woods last week, who's a 320-pound defensive lineman. Stiff-armed him to the ground on the way to another big run. He had over 300 yards from scrimmage. It was incredible. You shouldn't be able to do that
to make a 320-pound man look like a cupcake, just swatting a cupcake to the side. No, that's impressive.
Your defensive player of the year.
Defensive player of the year, no question, is Micah Parsons for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
He is what we all know as a game changer. Anytime he's on the field, he's second in the league in sacks. I believe he has 12 of them. But he's changing the game. He's changing, making offensive coordinators that he's playing against have to change their game plan and change their entire script just because of him. I think he'll run away with Defensive Player of the Year.
Coy, you played linebacker, so you know how much work it takes to get to the NFL and to last as long as you did, and then play one position. Micah Parsons will play off the ball linebacker on the edge. He'll play inside linebacker. They'll sometimes put him down at nose tackle, and mostly this season they've rushed him off the edge. And I figure if he picked one of those positions, he'd still be an all-pro at just whatever one of them. How tough is that? Because now we're kind of getting used to saying, oh, he goes here, he goes there. But in reality, how tough is what he's doing?
It's really tough. And, you know, I got drafted as a safety. I'd never played defensive back in my life, but I played that for 6 years. Then they switched me to linebacker. And just doing those two things, I mean, it's you think about just the angles from which you see each play. You know, when you're standing off the ball, you have kind of like this panoramic view of everything going on around you. For some people, that's great, but other people, they have a tough time, computing all of this information. And then you go up on the line, and now you're seeing tunnel vision more. You're just like more you and this 300-plus-pound behemoth right across from you, and it's a whole different skill set because you're going to have to be in a sumo wrestling match with him on your way to the ball carrier. So for him to be this transformer, like a chameleon that can adapt to any circumstance, that his defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, who's also outstanding, by the way, that he's putting him in, it just shows his football genius and his athletic, prowess. It's off the charts.
All right, this is the big one, Coy. Last one. It just says here Super Bowl champion, but I'm going to get greedy. Do you have a Super Bowl matchup, then a champion?
I do.
Good.
And, it shouldn't be hard to figure out who I want from the AFC. I played 6 years in Buffalo. It is time for the Buffalo Bills to get back to the big show. But Bills Mafia and all their fans deserve it. They've earned it. They're going to rock that stadium, so they will be there representing the AFC. And on the NFC side, it pains me to say, because I grew up learning to dislike this team. And they're not one of the favorites to make it, but I think this could be the year. The Dallas Cowboys. Look out. Why, Neil? Because defense wins championships. And they are rocking. They're scary good. You get Dak Prescott and CD Lamb and Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott clicking on offense at the right time. Dallas Schultz, their tight ends, picking it up. I think they're going to sneak up and edge out those Eagles on the NFC to make it.
So, Coy, are you going to break Buffalo Bills fans' hearts here with your prediction? Because the Bills, of course, in the early 1990s, they lost 4 straight Super Bowls. Imagine that. They got up off the mat every time, went back to the Super Bowl the following year. The last 2 of those losses came in back-to-back back-to-back seasons against the Dallas Cowboys. Do the Buffalo Bills get their revenge?
You know, Neil, we started this off really well, but you had to bring that up. It's too soon, my friend. All that pain, all that hurt. Oh, the years of agony. And then I, as a player, had to go there and feel like we're playing. Are we cursed? What is happening here? Well, it is time for the Bills. They have certainly got the curse off of them. They're playing lights out for several years now. They've got a good thing going, and this is the year they will circle the wagons. And let's go Buffalo. Chicken wings for everyone. Buffalo wings for everybody. The Bills are going to be Super Bowl champs.
I love me some Josh Allen. I can live with that. I can live with that as the Super Bowl champion. Coy, this has been fantastic to talk to you about your journey, your picks for this season, and the international growth of the NFL, which of course is so exciting. We'd like to thank you for checking out this first episode. Please check out the Decyfr Handoff podcast. Again, we'll be back in January. You can follow us at Decyfr Sport. I'm going to give you all of the social handles here, but I'm going to have to check them because there's a lot now. There's a lot these kids use. You can keep across Decyfr Sport on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok for all your daily content. Again, my thanks to Coy Wire. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the holidays.